It was a cool night in Basantapur, the heart of Kathmandu, where the streets are often alive with people during the day but are eerily quiet after sunset. The old stone buildings, towering temples, and narrow alleys gave the place an ancient, mysterious feel, and even the air seemed to hum with stories from centuries past. One evening, after a long day of work, I decided to take a walk through the streets of Basantapur. The moon hung high above, casting a pale light over the historical square, illuminating the ancient wooden windows and intricate carvings on the temples. It was late, and most of the shops were closed, leaving the square almost deserted. As I walked through the cobbled streets, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of unease. The silence was heavy, almost unnatural. My footsteps echoed in the narrow alleyways, and the only other sounds were the distant calls of a dog or the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Then, as I passed the old temple near the palace, I heard something, footsteps, but they were not mine. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks, but then I heard them again. The sound of heavy, uneven footsteps, closer now. I stopped and turned, half expecting to see a late-night wanderer or a street vendor packing up, but the street was empty. I took a deep breath and continued walking, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. The footsteps grew louder, faster, and before I knew it, something emerged from the shadows ahead. It was a figure, tall and imposing, with glowing eyes that reflected the moonlight. The creature was dressed in a frightening mask, painted with bold red and black designs, and its body was wrapped in layers of tattered cloth. The sound of its footsteps grew louder, and I could see the long, exaggerated horns protruding from its head. This was no ordinary person. It was a Lakhey, the mythical demon spirit that haunts the streets during festivals and is said to bring both fear and protection to the people. I stood frozen in place, my heart pounding. The Lakhey's massive form moved with an eerie grace, and its eyes seemed to pierce right through me. Its mask twisted into a terrifying grin, and with every step it took, the air grew colder. The deep, guttural sound of its breath filled the space between us, and I could feel the ground beneath me tremble slightly, as if the very earth was reacting to its presence. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. The Lakhey didn't seem to notice me at first. It was more focused on the darkness, its massive body swaying rhythmically. But then, it turned toward me, its eyes narrowing. For a moment, it stood still, as if studying me. My mind raced, and I thought about running, but my legs refused to move. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the Lakhey let out a deafening roar, sending a chill through my entire body. It raised its hands, and I felt an overwhelming sense of fear flood my chest. The sound was unlike anything I had ever heard, a mixture of thunder and a deep growl, echoing through the alleyways of Basantapur. Suddenly, the creature took a step forward, and I could see its long, clawed fingers reaching out. But before it could get any closer, a loud bell rang from one of the temples nearby, cutting through the tension like a sharp knife. The Lakhey froze, its eyes locking onto mine for a brief, terrifying moment before it slowly turned and retreated into the shadows, disappearing into the darkness as quickly as it had come. I stood there, breathless, not sure what had just happened. The streets of Basantapur were once again quiet, but the air felt thick with an unsettling presence. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or still trapped in that nightmare. My heart raced, and I quickly walked away, glancing over my shoulder, expecting the Lakhey to emerge again. But it never did. To this day, I wonder if it was real or if my mind had played tricks on me that night. But I'll never forget the feeling of encountering the Lakhey in the streets of Basantapur. A creature of legend, a guardian of the past, or perhaps a demon lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to remind us that some things are better left undisturbed. And every time I walk through Basantapur at night, I can't help but feel the weight of its ancient streets, and the watchful eyes of Lakhey, just out of sight, waiting. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more of real-life horror stories like these.